Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Mirror's Edge. We're in part 4, so we found out Ropeburn's up to something, so let's go find him.
Ropebird's the bad guy?
He's one of the bad guys, yeah.
Ropeburn's the wrestler.
Yep, he's the wrestler.
Ooh.
The more I think about it, the more I see, like, narrative and stylistic parallels between this and Remember Me.
Cue ironic note about how Lewis is the only person to remember me.
Well, I mean, it's such a vanilla game when you boil it down. Like, it has this same kind of vibe and story theme going on. And from a writing perspective, I would actually argue it's quite a bit more fleshed out. But from a gameplay perspective, it's a bog-standard third-person action adventure, Prince of Persia-ish platformer kind of thing.
Well, I was noticing that there's a lot of stuff that feels Prince of Persia-y, speaking as someone who's only watched Prince of Persia and never actually played it. But, you know, I associate all of this sort of realistic style platforming where you can only jump as far as a human could feasibly jump, and you have to use the environment a lot. That reminds me a lot of what I've seen of Prince of Persia.
Prince of Persia did codify a lot of the basics of that. Basically, every game in third person nowadays has the same extremely telegraphed ledge grabbing system. They may not have taken cues from Prince of Persia with wall running and shit, because that would be a little too specific, but the general basics of the way semi-realistic three-dimensional movement works often draws a lot from it.
It's weird that, like, the wall climbing, like, not the wall climbing, but, like, the ledge grabbing and, like, the pulling yourself off is often so slow in these games, because I should say more the clones, because the one thing that I've heard a lot of people like about Prince of Persia is the flow, that you move from doing one thing to another very quickly and seamlessly, which honestly is very important in any platformer, realistic or otherwise. So
the flow in Prince of Persia is at least in part the animation, because everything visually flows into everything else very nicely. You can see it especially well in the combat, because as basic as the combat is in Sands of Time, god damn if the prince doesn't look skillful in action. He doesn't snap from attack to attack the way Dante might. Dante just, like, cancels out of animations into other animations, even when you're just doing normal shit and not doing the actual cancels. But, like, with the Prince of Persia, every movement of your sword arm, every movement of your body will flow and pivot into every other one. And it's honestly quite beautiful to look at in action, even though the graphics themselves are quite dated. I'm honestly worried that they'll fuck that part up in the remake.
Oh, I forgot that Sands of Time is getting remade. When did they announce that? Hold on.
A number of years ago, and we've heard nothing about it since.
Yeah, I've learned my lesson. I have Wikipedia open right now, actually. The Sands of Time. So the original Sands of Time came out 2003, which is actually, I thought it was a little bit earlier than that, but, you know. And then there's a lot in this Wikipedia article. Yeah, the remake was originally scheduled for release on 21st January 2021. Oh, man.
Yeah.
And last thing we heard about it, Ubisoft once again delayed the game, this time stating that the company was no longer targeting a release during its 2022-2023 fiscal year. So, where is it right now? Who the hell knows? But
I get the feeling that they cut down the number of people who were working on different projects and reprioritized a lot of stuff because of the pandemic.
Yeah, I think that's kind of a silent thing for many industries, that people aren't, like, kind of, like, people just kind of forgot that we had a pandemic, so people were like, oh man, all these new Marvel movies are so bad. Why did that happen? It's like, bruh. They were developed when there was a global pandemic. What did you expect? Oh, geez. Oh, God. the toupee. Oh, it's terrible. Oh God, no.
It's not as if movie making and game design are jobs that can be remote worked most of the time either.
Game design a little bit more than movies, but
No. Not unless every developer on the team had top of the line gear at home.
Yeah, that's why I said a little bit more, because it's like, I suppose, feasible if the company wanted to pay the money to get them that, but no, not like an indie team, you're right. Or
Smaller indie teams that are making smaller scale games that they could develop on on a rig like mine, then sure, but higher budget stuff, no.
yeah, the funny thing is a company like EA probably could afford to have their team work from home, but they're not going to spend the money to do that. So.
I'm sorry, the screen tearing here has been hurting my soul.
Yeah, that's 2008 for you. Screen tearing happens because anti-aliasing is off or on?
Not anti-aliasing, Vsync.
Vsync, okay, sorry.
Anti-aliasing is for smoothing out the jaggies. Vsync is for making sure the whole screen refreshes all nice and smooth.
Okay, and so you want Vsync off to stop the...
You want Vsync on unless the game implements it poorly, in which case you turn it off in game and force it on the game through your GPU. One of the unsung perks of PC gaming is being able to do that. If the Vsync sucks on consoles, you're just stuck with it, you know. Well, I mean, if you were to emulate this game, you could force it on the game through the GPU. How is this guy holding onto a round pipe like that?
Oh, somebody else shot him. I was going to be like, oh, are we going to let him back up? And the answer is no, we don't get the chance. Did this game get a PC port? Let's wonder. Yeah, it got a PC port 2009, although considering it's a 2009 port, it probably doesn't inherently have many of those features that more modern games would have.
I think I have them both on the EA app. Let me see.
Yeah, I'm wondering, because we are getting to the point where, like, 360 and Xbox 360 and PS3 emulation is probably pretty close to possible, if not possible. I wonder, like, how much you could, like, change about this game.
Well, I wouldn't know, because searching for emulation for anything relatively modern just gets you bullshit scam websites. So
that is true. Yeah.
Let's see. Do I have Mirror's Edge here? Okay, let's see.
One thing that I also want to point out that I'm really impressed by with this game is, well, two things. One, the game runs very nicely. Like, the resolution and frame rate have been very consistent throughout. And the load times are also pretty short. Considering that this is 2008, neither of those things could be assumed.
I see.
For the time.
I don't have Mirror's Edge and Mirror's Edge Catalyst. I can play them whenever I want because they're on EA Play, which I get for free with Game Pass, but I could just buy them right now because Mirror's Edge Catalyst is 89 cents on sale, and Mirror's Edge is $179.
Wait, so hold on. To backtrack for a bit, you have a subscription service that gives you access to a different subscription service?
Basic EA Play is included in Game Pass, yeah.
God, I hate the future.
Well, I mean, it's a nice bundle to have.
I mean, I'm not complaining that you get access to all these games with Game Pass. Like, that's great. I'm more like, why do we need to have a Game Pass to get a different Game Pass? Why can't they just be part of the same thing?
It's more that one moment. Sorry, I just had a coughing fit and I had to mute my mic. It's more that you can get all access to all of the EA games through Game Pass, but when you do, they open EA app and download them through there rather than the PC's Xbox app. And I'm pretty sure if you're doing it on console, then there's no difference. It just it's all just one big thing.
Oh, this is like when you download something through Steam and then it opens up Uplay and you're like, I don't want Uplay, and then the PC's like, screw you, it doesn't matter.
Kind of, although the Uplay thing was more because Ubisoft had a lot of in-game rewards functionality going on for a while there. I don't know if they still do that. Uplay was awful, though. It's the one app that I never bother to reinstall on my computer anymore. I have some stuff on it, but not enough. Not enough to be like. It's the one app that for some reason never lets you stay logged on for very long, so you constantly have to log back on. And guess who keeps forgetting which email address I signed up for which accounts with? This guy. So I keep having to like type in a bunch of old email addresses and then try to hope that I still remember the passwords attached to them.
Are we gonna just ignore the fact that all the cops know Kaioken?
I think that's probably some sort of effect in the game world that's supposed to tell you this thing over here is doing something specific that you need to pay attention to.
Yeah, so the game definitely highlights anything important in red. So I know that that's what it's going for. It's just the way that they're glowing definitely looks like they have Kaioken, which I find very funny.
You know something? The goddamn the goddamn train tunnels in Resident Evil 6 gave me a phobia of train tunnels in video games, because like the vehicles in that game blindside the hell out of you and they instant kill you every time, and it's just like, this part of the game's design really needed a rebalance.
Do they have like actual subway trains going through
Yes.
that part of the game?
Yes, they
Okay,
did.
so like if you've ever been on the subway, you hear the train coming from like 30 seconds away, if not more. Because if you didn't know, subway trains are loud and big, so you can hear and feel them.
Yeah, the thing is, the subway tunnel isn't just an empty subway tunnel with a train passing by. It's a subway tunnel you're actively fighting a horde of zombies in as the train comes at you. So
Yeah, so it's like, but even still, you should be able to. You shouldn't be blindsided by the subway. You should be blindsided by the zombies.
Look, it's extremely difficult to keep an eye out for what side of the tunnel specifically the train is coming from while fighting the zombies, because you hear the train and you think, oh shit, which direction is the train coming from? Oh, but I'm like 2 feet away from a zombie that's trying to grab me. I can't turn around and look. And then you see the lights start to come in and it's blinding you, but you're paying half your attention is on the zombie that's trying to choke you to death. So you can't really tell until it starts to get closer which side of the tracks the train is on. And because you're constantly being turned around trying to fight the zombies, it's easy to lose track of which side of the tracks goes in which direction. So your entire sense of direction is just discombobulated the whole time. So you're constantly having to figure out which train is on which side and which way is it going.
Well, hold on. Why did the supply closet kill you?
No, I was on a different train track line.
Oh, okay. That makes more sense.
I just didn't see the other train coming.
It just the way that you were walking around, it looked like you were going in to get a mop, and then suddenly the bleach strangled you and you died.
On the other hand, that frickin' ambulance kills everyone in Resident Evil 6. There's this one ambulance that comes like careening down the street to crash into a store in the middle of a fight with zombies in the streets, and like, if you don't know it's coming, you don't know what part of the area you're not supposed to stand in. So what winds up happening is you see this ambulance coming at you, and it's like, oh god, where is it gonna stop? And then it swerves and falls onto its side, and like, oh god, it's coming straight at me. I thought it was going the other way. I don't think there's a single player alive who hasn't been hit by that ambulance on their first time through that area.
Wait, is the zombie driving the ambulance?
No, it's just a bit of like live action chaos in the middle of the zombie apocalypse, because they got fairly ambitious with that for the first act of Leon's story.
Oh, so there are like still a lot of people alive during
Yeah,
the game.
it's like ground zero of the zombie apocalypse in Tall Oaks.
Okay. That's actually interesting, because that's not something you really see in Resident Evil a lot. You pretty much only ever see the scene after everybody has already been dead, and you're reading their itchy tasty notebooks and whatever.
Well, yeah, they kind of had to do it that way in the originals, because everything was like fixed camera pre-rendered backgrounds.
Yeah, but like even in like the more modern games like Resident Evil 4 and 5, whenever you met a survivor, it was a big deal. Versus the way you're describing Resident Evil 6, it's like people freaking out is almost as much of a hazard as the zombies are.
Yes, very much so.
And I mean, I guess I'm not super surprised that they didn't try to do more with that, considering Resident Evil 6 didn't perform super great in terms of reviews. I don't know about sales, but in terms of like reception, it didn't do great. So I'm not surprised they went back to something more like the old games for 7 and 8. But it's certainly an interesting idea that could be explored in a future game.
Potentially, if they ever remake Resident Evil Outbreak, they could do something with that for one or two of the stories.
I remember in a part we did years and years and years and years ago that Ryan mentioned at one point that they should do spin-offs leaning into the Resident Evil 4 shoot 'em up kind of style, to kind of satisfy the urges of both kind of player bases, where you lean more survival horror in one series and more action-y in the other. And if they were to ever do that, that would be a cool take to go for the more action route.
I think my idea around the time 7 was coming out was that it would have been neat if they continued the Resident Evil Revelations series and just had that be the more action-y one. But
yeah, that would have made sense. From what I played of Revelations 1 and 2, they play a lot like Resident Evil 4. So,
well, the funny thing about the Revelations games is that during the Resident Evil 5 and 6 era, the Revelations games were the more horror-oriented entries. Well, at least they tried to be. They didn't exactly nail it the way Resident Evil 2 Remake did. They were a bit more caught between subgenres, if that makes sense. A little too action-y to go full horror, but not quite solid enough survival horror design to be full survival horror games either. They also leaned into like design elements that were too repetitive, to be honest.
Yeah, from what I've played of Revelations, that does make sense. I only got a couple hours in, but it was a lot of the same kind of shit.
Well, what I mean is Revelations 2 in particular. You play through a well, it was episodic, and it was episodic releases at first, so it makes a little bit more sense in that context. But basically, if you play the whole game front to back, you play through a chapter as Claire and what was it, Moira? Barry's daughter. You play it as those two, and then you play the same area again as Barry and the little ghost girl with the psychic powers. And it's different each time because they're playing through the area at different times. And you're sort of following in the wake of what happened in Claire's story. And there are different enemies and different story elements, but you can't really get around the fact that you're playing through the same area twice in a row each time. So
as opposed to the other Resident Evil games where you will play Chris and then Jill, it's like if you were splitting up Chris and Jill's playthrough and doing them back to back in chunks.
Yes, if you went if you went key door by key door in the same order as Chris and then Jill, it would be like that. Yeah.
In that sense, yes, that would make the pacing of the old games a lot worse if you jumped between stories every 30 minutes. I get that for sure.
Yeah.